hello. Tell me where you're tuning in from. Happy Sunday night. We are making a wonderful beef stew. It's a very simple recipe, one that you can take different riffs on throughout the week or any other time that you choose to make beef stew. So I'm going to keep things pretty simple tonight. Hey, Colleen, good to see you. Hey, Michelle, how are you? Staying warm down in South Carolina, I trust. Hey, Brian, good to see you. Are you cooking with me tonight? Let me know. Let me know. So, as I mentioned, this is going to be a pretty simple recipe for beef stew. I'm calling it a quick beef stew because we're really trying to cook it as quickly as possible. If you want, typically beef stew is cooked over a longer period of time, so like 1.5, 2 hours, sometimes longer. And the reason for that is to really help the collagen and the marbling in your steak really break down and create a tender meat product while also delivering lots of extra flavor. So if you want to go that route and you want to slow cook your stew tonight and really develop the flavor, really get a nice tender bite of meat, then go ahead and do that. I'm going to try to set you up to do it a little bit quicker than that. So what we're going to do first is get our big pot on a stove. Get the biggest pot that you have. Put a little bit of oil on the bottom and turn your pan on about a medium-high heat. Because what we're going to do is just sear the outside of that meat. I'm just going to put, I don't know, roughly a tablespoon of oil in here at the bottom. We'll let that come up to heat. Oh, Michelle said it's 48 right now. I like warm weather. Hey, Tammy. Good evening, beautiful to you too. Long time no see. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. So if you are cooking with me tonight, go ahead and follow these steps that I'm doing right now. So I've got my pot out on the stove. Heat is on about medium-high. We've got some oil in the pan. And then go ahead and get your beef out. So if you saw in the recipe notes, I recommended getting a chuck cut of beef, and you can actually ask your butcher to cut them up into pieces for you so you don't have to do that at home. So I did that today at the store. So you can see these are all in bits and pieces, and all I have to do is unwrap this and throw it all into the pot. And while that's heating up, and before I actually dump the meat in, go ahead and get out anything else that you need for this meal. So these are the things that we're also going to be throwing in. We're going to be doing some carrot and celery. We're also going to do some pearl onions here. If you couldn't find pearl onions, not a big deal. Go ahead and just chop up a regular onion when it comes time to do that. These guys do have their skins on, and there's a nifty little instruction sheet here at the top of the lid that says to boil these guys for about 30 to 60 seconds. Cut the ends off, and then you can just squeeze them out of their skin. So I'm actually going to try that tonight. I've never done it before. But we're going to see how that goes, because I think that's probably going to be faster and easier than trying to peel the papery skin off each individual onion here. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but we're also going to put in some red potatoes. So I've got about 5 potatoes here. We're going to cut them into bite-sized pieces, and we're going to throw them in as well. And then, of course, mushrooms, because this is a beef and mushroom stew. We're going to be using portobello caps. Of course, use any kind of mushroom that you want. Yay, Brian, you are cooking with me. Okay, awesome. Very cool. Well, let me know if you were able to find everything, and if not, I'm happy to provide any substitution suggestions that you might have on hand. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get the beef into our pot. And like I said, we're just going to sear the outside of the beef. We're just going to try to get a nice crust on the outside of each piece. So we're really only going to cook these for about 5 minutes, and then we'll take them out. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And we'll get a spoon in here. Kind of move things around. Wonderful. And let's go ahead and season with a little bit of salt and pepper. So, just a pinch of salt in here, a little bit of pepper. And when you have a second, go ahead and get a bowl out, because what we'll do is, like I said, we're going to transfer the beef out of this pot and into a bowl. We're going to set it aside for a minute while we get everything else going. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to do is, what I'm going to do, I don't know how your pearl onions are packaged. A lot of times you can find pearl onions without the papery skin on them, so you don't have to do this extra step of peeling each individual onion. I'm going to go ahead and get this pot of water on the stove up to a boil so I can throw these guys in there and try that trick that they mentioned on the lid here. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention about beef. If you are shopping at the grocery store or anywhere really for a cut of meat that you want to use for a stew, a lot of times you'll see them label it as stew beef. And a lot of times that's not the best cut to use, and it actually gets really tough and chewy if you overcook it because there's just not a lot of fat or marbling inside of it. So try to avoid the stew meat, even though it seems like that's the meat that you should buy. I've made that mistake before. I was like, oh, stew meat. I'm making beef stew, so I'm gonna get this meat. But it was really tough and chewy and not a very enjoyable experience. So getting a chuck cut or even like a bottom round that's got some marbling in it so you can see the fat in there, that's gonna give you a nice tender product. And the longer that you cook it, the more those fats and collagens break down and create a nice tender product. Kiki is good. Yes, and Riley, they are doing well. Thanks for asking. Usually they're around here once we start cooking in the kitchen, but they're not here right now. I bet once I start chopping things, they will come running. So while that meat is cooking, let's go ahead and start chopping up the carrot and the celery. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna chop the carrot into rounds. So I'm gonna just slice off the two ends here, set those aside, and then cut these into thin rounds. And you can do as many carrots as you want, as many stalks of celery as you want. You can add other things into this too, like at the very end you could add a green, you could do spinach or kale, you could do chard. You could add peas. I think peas are a common addition into stew. Do the same thing with our celery, just kind of come in and slice it. To get some extra greens in tonight, we are going to be serving this with a very basic side salad, which I'll show you in a little bit. You don't have to do that, but if you feel like you want a little bit more to your meal, then maybe a side salad is a good thing to add. Perfect. Okay, now for the potatoes, again, I'm just going to cut them into bite-sized pieces, trying to mimic the size of the carrots here. Again, we want everything to cook at relatively the same rate. Has anybody ever made beef stew before? Tammy says, I've never had problems with any cut of meat for my soups or stews. Interesting. So is there like a particular cut of meat that you buy that's kind of like a go-to? Yukon Gold potatoes are also really good in stews. I feel like you just can't do a stew without a potato, though. In my mind, it's essential. All right, I'm gonna go over and check on the beef here. So what we're gonna do is try to just flip these pieces over, let the other side cook. Again, we're not gonna fully cook the beef right now this way. Oh, I just remembered, we're also gonna do garlic. I did not get my garlic out. Oh, this smells so good already. I have to say, I don't cook a ton with beef. We don't really eat a lot of beef here, but it's definitely a treat when we do. And for that reason, we try to get a better cut of meat when we can. Perfect. We'll just let those cook for another minute, and then we'll take them out. We're gonna leave all the drippings in the pan because we're gonna actually use that to cook everything else. It's gonna be delicious. Water's not yet up to a boil. Brian, I'm curious, are your pearled onions peeled already, or using a regular onion, or how are you doing your onion tonight? Tammy says, whatever I can get my hands on. I make stews a lot in the winters. Awesome. Chicken stew, oh, or even pork stew is good also. I've never done a pork stew. That sounds good though. I do like pork. I like the flavor. Okay, back to these potatoes here. So is everybody ready for Thanksgiving? I can't believe that it's just a few days away. I feel like this year has just flown by. What is everybody's favorite Thanksgiving side dish? All right, let's go ahead and get those beef cubes out. Again, we'll put them in this bowl here, set them aside. I'm gonna grab a bigger spoon for this. Got this really nice, huge slotted spoon. Woo. And then what we'll do is we'll throw our carrot and celery right in the pan here and get those guys cooking. They're gonna cook in they're gonna cook in this beef fat. And it's gonna be delicious. All right. I'm gonna grab those. We're gonna hold off on putting the potatoes in there. So if you haven't quite finished chopping up your potatoes, it's totally fine. But let's go ahead and get those carrot and celery in. Let those saute for about a minute. In the meantime, we can chop our garlic, and we'll also get the garlic in there as well. How much water are you using? Also, I'm cooking with my mom. Yay, cooking with mom. So we're using a mixture of beef broth and bone broth, and we're doing 16 ounces of each. And then if you want your stew to be a little bit more, have more liquid, then we'll add water on top of that to your desired consistency. So a total first of 32 ounces of liquid. Hey, Diane. Pan, made it. What are you doing what's your Sunday look like? I'm curious now. I'm using regular onions and green onions. Awesome, cool, totally fine. So Tammy's favorite side dish is green beans and bacon. That sounds delicious. What is not to love about that? My favorite, I think, is a stuffing, like a good homemade stuffing, not like a stovetop. Colleen said, I bet it would be good to sous vide the beef, then sear it very tender. Ooh, that's a great idea. And that's something that you could do ahead of time. And then you could be cooking your stew while that is sous videing, and then just pop the meat in there when it's done and seared. We should try that next time. Right. Let me get this garlic peeled here. And then we'll just dice it up, slice it up real quick. Doesn't have to be perfect. The point is we're just trying to get some garlic in there. All right, get this garlic in, give those veggies another stir. We're gonna lightly season the carrot and the celery with a little bit of salt and pepper. Woo. Now my water's boiling too. Lots of things happening right now. I'm gonna turn the heat down a little bit on this stew pot. Just a pinch of salt and pepper. Let this cook for a minute. I'm gonna dump these pearl onions in here. Whoa, I'm so excited to see if this works. Brian, if you're doing regular onion, you can throw your onions in with the carrot and the celery right now and saute them together. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have little bits of things stuck to the bottom of your pan. That is a good thing. That means that there's going to be lots of flavor in your stew. And so what we'll do is, in a minute, we're going to pour the liquids into this pot, and you're going to use your spoon to kind of scrape up those bits on the bottom and get them into the liquid. That process is called deglazing your pan, and it adds a lot of flavor. All right, and these only need to boil for a minute, apparently. And then put them, I'll drain them. This should be interesting. Hey, Evan and Casey, how are you guys doing? Are you cooking with me? You cooking beef stew? Diane said it was a beautiful day spent outside with the dog. I love it. I took Kiki for a really long walk today. George and Colleen took Riley for a long walk today. It was beautiful outside. A perfect day to spend outside, absolutely. Because it's about to get colder again, right? Okay, I'm gonna grab these onions and I'm gonna dump them in a colander here. Ooh, the liquid was bright yellow, probably from the skins. We'll run some cold water over them. The directions technically say to do an ice bath. Oh, some of them are coming off already. Very cool. Okay. I'll let these guys hang out for a minute. And now what we'll do is go ahead and pour our stock into the pan, and we will deglaze the pan. So 16 ounces. I'm doing a combination of chicken and beef bone broth. I'm gonna do half and half. And again, we're likely going to add more liquid as the cooking process goes on. So we will keep these aside, and if we need them, we can use them, or you can just add water in there. So at this point, go ahead and use your spoon to scrape off the bits that were stuck on the bottom of your pan. You can also do the deglazing process with other liquids to add a different kind of flavor. So a popular one is red wine. You could do a white wine, kind of depending on what the meal is that you're making. You could do vinegar. So you could do like a balsamic vinegar or a red wine vinegar. And all those things are going to just lend some extra flavor to your stew. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat back on to about a medium high because we want to get this back to a simmer. And I'm going to throw the beef back in. So you can go ahead and throw your beef back in. We'll let that hang out and cook. You can see the wonderful fat globules swimming around on the top, which means there's going to be a lot of flavor in this. So this is very exciting. So at this point, we can go ahead and pretty much throw everything in. So onions, if you haven't yet, let's chop up those mushrooms and get them in, and then go ahead and put the potatoes in as well. Potatoes. Yes, so I can tell we're already going to need to add a little bit more liquid. Totally fine. Okay, let's check out this onion situation. Did this work? So apparently what I can do is slice off the end and then, oh yeah, squeeze them out of the, out of the skin like that. Okay, that's cool. A little bit easier, but it's still a little time consuming, right? Let's see how many of these I can do. Again, if you want things to go a little bit faster, I would recommend buying pearled onions that are already skinned for you, or just use the regular onion and chop it up like normal. That's actually not too bad though once you get it started. I just like the pearl onions because it's nice to have a little bite of onion in this shape in your soup. It's fun. I went for the fun factor over the convenience factor. Brian is asking, is the water separate from the broth? It is. So first pour all of the broth in that you're using. And then we're going to use water. You'll use the water to add extra liquid if you want it. Like if you want your stew to be a little bit more soupy, have a little bit more liquid, then you'll top it off with water. I can smell it already. It smells so good. They come out pretty quickly. This is the meditation part of cooking, right? That we always talk about. Doing one task. It seems like a menial, time-consuming task. But that's not a bad thing. If you have a partner in the kitchen, this goes a lot faster. So Brian has cooked with me several times, and he does say that, you know, having someone in the kitchen with you cooking is helpful. Things go a little bit faster, a little bit smoother. One person can be chopping while someone else is stirring or manning the stove. And especially if you're not terribly confident in the kitchen, you know, having someone help you in the beginning can make it make it more fun and more likely that you'll actually continue to cook. It's kind of fun squeezing these out of here, I have to say. Hey, Erin. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. We are making a mushroom beef stew. So I am going to get these onions in the pot, and then I'm going to get those mushrooms chopped up and throw those in as well. Perfect. Okay. Let me get these guys in. These are just going to be little jewels of sweetness in this stock. It's going to be delicious. Put those in. Go ahead and put a lid on this. Let that cook. Let's see. Brian, are we simmering on low heat or boiling the water? It's easier to ask questions and comment when you have two people. Now that I'm realizing that the water, I think, are you talking about the water that was on the left for my onions? Is that the water that you're talking about? I forgot about that. Because if you're using a regular onion, you don't need to do that extra pot of water. That was for me to boil these little pearl onions in and to get their skins off. But if you're using regular onion, you don't even need to worry about that. So let me know if that's the water that you're talking about, and then I'll continue on answering your question. In the meantime, we can go ahead and get these mushrooms. Oh, okay, so in the stew. No, you don't need to boil the water. You just, once you've got your pot of stew on the stove and you've got your beef and your onions and your celery in there with the stock in there, bring that up to a boil. And then what we'll do is we'll turn it down, let it simmer, let it cook a little bit. And then if you want to add extra water because you want the stew to be a little bit more soupy, then that's when you would go ahead and add your water. I'll let you know when I add my extra liquid, and that will be a cue for you to kind of see what yours is looking like and if you want to add any additional liquid to it. Whoops. All right. So I've got some portobello mushrooms here, which have a nice flavor. And I'm always trying to find other ways to use portobello mushrooms because I feel like a lot of the times we throw them on the grill during summer, but they can be used in so many other ways because they have so much flavor. So we're going to do 3 or 4 of these big caps, just depending on how much you like mushrooms. I'm going to rinse these guys off. And then what we'll do is just go ahead and cut them in half, and then we will slice them. About a 1/2 inch thick. They will reduce significantly in volume, so I know that they look like really big chunks right now, but once you cook these guys up, they will shrink quite a bit. Those are huge. Yes, they are huge. Does anybody else like portobello mushrooms? How do you like to use them? Yeah, seriously, they're like as big as my head. They're giant. Colleen says she loves any mushroom. You can really get fancy with the mushrooms. There's so many different kinds of mushrooms. There's an Asian market here in Peoria. I don't know if anybody's ever been, or if you have one near you, if you don't live in Peoria. You can get a wide variety of mushrooms there for super cheap. A lot of times if we want to do Asian things, we'll go there and get the mushrooms because we know that we can get a big bang for your buck when it comes to the mushrooms. Okay, I'm gonna throw my mushrooms in. Go ahead and throw your mushrooms in once you get them chopped up. And so this is really increasing the veggie content of our stew. It's not gonna be just straight beef, right? Ooh, yes, this looks so good. So at this point, let's see. I'm gonna add about a cup more liquid. And I'm gonna do the, I think I'm gonna do the beef stock. I'm gonna add a little bit more. I want the liquid to come and cover all of the mushrooms in here. So I'm gonna finish off that beef stock. So I still have half of my chicken stock thing left. Again, Brian, that's the point where you decide, do you want to add stock or do you want to add water? Obviously, stock will give it more flavor. If you're trying to keep your sodium intake low, then maybe you would choose water. And then if you have a bay leaf, go ahead and throw your bay leaf in. And then also on the recipe, I put thyme, but then I kind of left it up to you to season it with any flavor that you really like. Oregano could work well in here. Rosemary would work well. So I think I'm going to do some thyme and some bay leaf. Bay leaf is kind of a classic thing to throw in beef stew. You just need one, just pop it in there. Again, you'll get the best flavor the longer that you let your stew simmer. I'm looking for my thyme because I didn't get it out beforehand. Here we go. Oh, it smells so good. I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of thyme. Again, you can always put more in. Let it simmer for a while, give it a taste, and see if it needs more. Because if you overdo it on the spice, it's kind of hard to take it away. I mean, you could dilute your stew a little bit more, but the dried spices can be pretty potent. Oh, I'm so excited for this. This is going to be so good. Okay, I'm gonna put a lid on this, cover it. And so at this point, it's been about 30 minutes. And so you can, my beef is not quite fully cooked through. So what I would say is cook your stew for, and if yours is the same as mine, cook your stew for another 15 minutes. And then at that point, if your veggies are soft and your beef is cooked through, it's ready to eat. But as I've mentioned before, if you want to develop a little bit more flavor, let that stew cook for, anywhere from another 30 minutes to another hour, just depending on how hungry you might be right now. Diane, I have a poor memory, but it seems few and far between of shows with beef. You are correct. And you've said that before, which made me think. It was like, maybe I should cook with beef. What should I cook with beef? Beef stew sounds good. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, I don't really cook with a lot of beef. And it's just, I don't know, preference. We'll do steak every now and then. And when we do steak, we do use the sous vide, which we have at home. And so if you're not familiar with sous vide, you basically season your steaks, you vacuum pack them, and then you cook them in a controlled temperature of water. So for example, we normally like our steak medium rare. So what we'll do is we'll cook the steaks in boiling water that is 135 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sous vide keeps it 135 degrees so that it can evenly cook the steak, and you've got it perfectly cooked all throughout. And then you take it out of the water and you sear it in a pan with a little bit of butter to get a nice crust on the outside, and it's super good. It's so good. It's cooked perfect every time. What other kind of, give me some ideas, Diane, of ways to use beef. What other things do you like to eat with beef? Hey, Jackie, good to see you. Let me know how things are going, Brian. I hope I answered your question for you. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be serving this with a very basic side salad. So we just bought a big container of mixed greens. So we've got a big bowl of mixed greens here. Excuse me, they haven't been dressed yet. I wanted to show you this really cool dressing that we've really been enjoying as of late. So what we do is use either one or a combination of these. Creamy peppercorn. Hold on, let me do one at a time so you can see it. Creamy peppercorn or country French. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. I'm trying to give you a better view here. But I have not yet mastered the backwards. There. Penzeys Spices makes a country French and a creamy peppercorn, which when mixed with a little bit of yogurt or sour cream makes a really nice dressing that mimics, it's kind of like a ranch dressing, but 10 times better. And these things just have dried shallots and spices and lots of wonderful herbs. And you do about a tablespoon or two mixed in some water, and you let them sit for about 5 minutes, kind of let the dried spices, let their spice get into the water, the liquid, and then you'll mix this with your yogurt to thicken it up. Yes, Penzeys is the best, and they have fun little sayings, fun little notes that they send in the box to you once you get your spices, and they always give you a free spice, which is fun, a little jar of a free spice. So if you haven't yet, Penzeys is a great spice company. All right, I can see the water or the stew kind of boiling over there. Let's check on that, see what's going on. Ooh, yeah, okay. I'm gonna turn this down so that it's not boiling and it's more of a simmer. And I'm gonna let this bad boy cook for, I don't know, I think I'm gonna let it cook for like another 20 minutes. I really want that flavor to develop. But like I said, if you want it quick, it's probably done in about 5 minutes. And so as you're waiting for everything to fully cook through would be a good time, you can taste it, taste the broth, see how it is. Does it need anything else? Does it need a little bit of salt? Does it need some more thyme or maybe another bay leaf? Any more garlic? So you can kind of tweak the flavor as you go. All right, well, unless anybody has any other questions about the beef stew, like I said, I'm gonna let this guy cook for about 20 more minutes, and then we will feast on it. So with that being said, thanks for joining tonight. Brian, good luck in the kitchen with your mom. I hope everything is turning out well. Let me know if you have any questions, happy to answer them. I am jumping off right now, but if you comment or you can shoot me a text, I'm happy to help you out there. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. I will be back, I believe, on Sunday, so look out for the new schedule. I'm going to post that tomorrow. And as always, come and cook with me next week. Get your groceries over the weekend, tune in, and be ready to have some fun in the kitchen. All right, thanks and have a good night. Bye.